Hello everyone. I'm going to start this off with a very brief introduction explaining the results of an investigation we did surrounding this episode. Someone made several allegations in the comments section, and we have determined these allegations to be at least exaggerated if not outright false. I will include a full explanation surrounding these events at the end of this video, presented in its original format, so as not to take the focus off Daniel and his family. So without further ado, here's episode 3 of HBR Help. Hello once again, Badger fans. This is the Prim Reaper for HoneyBadgerRadio and HBR Help 3. Today I have a gentleman with me named Daniel. Daniel has been through quite a lot in the last little while, so he's here to tell us all what's been going on with him. Daniel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, hi. I really appreciate you guys talking to me. This is all pretty new to me. I gotten into the Badgers actually back with what happened at Calgary Expo. It was something I found really unfair, and I got on the live stream. Got involved with donating to the legal fund. Got familiar with Anna Cherry that way, and have followed you guys since. I think I've even in the past been on stream with you guys, but that was a long time ago and head injury. So, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and helping us out. We're in a really bad spot now, and it's hard because I've always been the one to take care of us, and with what's happened, that's not as easy as it used to be, and I can't fail them. I can't fail my family. My son and my wife are everything to me, and this is the last thing left that I have to help them, and you guys are making that possible, so thank you.
Well, we certainly appreciate your support through everything, so we'll do what we can to help support you now. Hopefully we can get you some help. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born in 1975. I was adopted by a military family, actually. My dad was Big Red 1, Fort Riley, Kansas. He was stationed. I lost him when I was pretty young. I was 10 years old. Actually lost my mom not too long ago. Essentially, the only family I have is the one that I built, and it's really important to me. Growing up, I spent a lot of time DJing. I was pretty nomadic. Had a lot of good times, but none as good as what happened 10 years ago when I met my wife. I made some changes to my life. I started seeking out full-time work and putting down roots, and eventually we decided to have my son. And my son is the light of my life. He's the beginning and end of everything that I do. That's one of the reasons why this situation is so frustrating. I was struck by that car on the way to work, and it essentially, more or less, removed my ability to support my family, and that's how I define myself. So, again, I'm really grateful to you guys for talking to me, but that's me. That's how I got here. And if you want to know what I'm about, you just have to look at my wife and son.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for sharing that with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the specific situation that happened that's put such a burden on you guys?
Well, like I said before, I was working full-time. We were living in Dallas, Georgia at the time. We had saved up and were living in a house. On September 4th, Labor Day, I was coming back from work, actually. And from what I understand, and a lot of this is what I'm told, I don't have a lot of memory of what happened. That breaks in memory are one of the problems. But at some point, a car struck me from behind really hard. They said that the bicycle was completely destroyed, and hit me hard enough that the first responder said that I was bleeding from the ears when they got there. I spent 2 weeks in a coma in Dallas, Georgia. I spent 2 more weeks in the hospital recovering. I suffered some pretty severe neurological damage. I still have a lot of problems with it. blinding headaches, loss of balance out of nowhere. Of course, made it pretty impossible for me to continue working in the job I was, which was a relatively physical job. I tried to do what I could. I tried to pick up some freelance work and was repairing electronics, but it just wasn't enough for us to keep the house. Eventually, it got to the point where it was no longer possible for me to give my son $10 for his school field trip to feed my family, to keep the house we were in. Fortunately, I had some friends that are a lot like family here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so with the last of what I could scrape together, savings and whatnot, we came back here. Right now, the three of us are living in a space that, show you. That's about it. And, I don't really have a problem with that. I'm not a type of person that's a very material type of person. But when you start talking about my ability to feed my family, my ability to send my son to school, right now we're struggling with even doing that, just getting across town. I am looking for work, but my hospital bill all by itself was $48,000. They tell me that there are things that I'm entitled to, victims assistance, but none of that really comes to me until they find a responsible party, and the hit and run drivers has not been located yet. And all of that would be fine if it were just me. I've definitely overcome some pretty crazy situations in my life, but when you start talking about things that my son has to go through, or my wife has to go through, their suffering is just something that destroys me. Like I said earlier, my definition of self is now about how I'm able to take care of my family, and for the first time, it doesn't seem like I am, at least not in the way that I'm familiar with. And so, as a last resort, while I'm here looking for work, and I am here looking for work, I don't just sit in this room all day, I'm looking for help, just getting the basic things that they need, food, transportation, get my son back in school. And if anybody can help me with that, then I really, really do appreciate it.
First of all, I'm really sorry that you and your family had to go through that. Just the depravity of somebody who could hit somebody hard enough to leave them bleeding in the street and then just disappear without a trace. It's frankly disgusting, and I don't know who would do such a thing, but I hope that you find them. I know that you already mentioned your medical bills, but would you mind telling people a little bit of the specifics of what you're looking for in terms of the financial help?
Well, actually, coming to the figure of $5,000, that was kind of arbitrary. The fact of the matter is I owe about $48,000 medical bills so far. The bulk of that $5,000 would be for me to at least complete my neurological testing. Aside from that, the money will be used to, right now, luckily we have a place to stay and food for now, but the fact of the matter is that this is a household we're not contributing anything to. And I'm not sure the patience of the person who we're staying with, not to mention the fact that I would really like us to get at least towards self-sufficiency as quickly as possible. So it would go to my medical expenses, it would go to feed us and eventually, with any luck, house us while I am looking for work. It will stay up until I'm able to find work and become self-sufficient. Now, whether it has made a $5,000 goal by then or not is really irrelevant, because as soon as we are able to be self-sufficient, I will shut down the GoFundMe. It's simply for the bulk of it is the barest necessities that my family will need in the time that it takes me to find employment and make sure that I'm physically able to perform the duties that I would take on.
Well, thank you again for sharing your story with us. We'll definitely be posting that GoFundMe link in the low bar, so if there's anything that any of you can donate to help Daniel and his family out in this situation, I'm sure that they would really appreciate it. Daniel, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us before we close out?
Yes, and I'd like to take an opportunity. I mean, first of all, of course, the Honey Badgers, I'm very, very grateful for doing this to get the word out. I also want to take the opportunity to, say thank you to everyone that has had found themselves able to donate. Today I was able to buy the whole day's worth of food for the family. I even got my son a treat at the store, and the ability to be able to do that again, just that very small little thing, it's been absolutely huge for me. Also, to the people that haven't been able to donate but have taken time out to share and help us get the word out there, the GoFundMe, I'm very, very grateful. Doing something like this is not something that I'm accustomed to or really know anything about, and I've been really lucky with a lot of people that have had a voice and have had the know-how that supported us and gotten us this far. It's allowed me to do some things that I was really worried about not being able to do again. And even those of you that haven't been able to donate or weren't able to do anything other than just to send us words of encouragement, I really appreciate that. This has been a really trying time.
Thank you all very much for listening to this episode of HBR Help. If you need help with a one-time extraordinary situation you find yourself in, please feel free to send HoneyBadgerRadio some information at help@badgerpod.com. We'll review your request and see if we can help. Thank you all for watching and for sticking around at the end to hear us out and hear what happened. Let me tell you, it was a hell of a weekend for me. Someone in the comments made several posts accusing Daniel of being a scammer, of being a drug addict who stole prescription medications from him, accusing him of stealing their credit cards and making charges without permission, and finally, accusing him of exaggerating the accident, saying it wasn't actually all that serious. As soon as I saw these comments, I presented them to Allison, who suggested that we pull the video as quickly as possible so as to investigate the claim. The person who originally commented sent us an email not long after that saying he was compiling bank statements, a lease, and other things to prove his relationship with Daniel. We also contacted Daniel and asked him about the veracity of these statements. Out of respect for Daniel's wishes, I won't go into the details of that discussion, but he informed me that these claims were hurtful and untrue. He explained in those emails, as well as mentioned, or at least hinted in the original video, that while he had used drugs in his youth, hey, no judgments here, let he who is without sin cast the first stone and all that, he gave up that life a long time ago for his wife and son. He provided us with the case number for his accident report again, which is also included in the GoFundMe page in the very first update if you'd like to see it for yourself, and also said that he would find us the hospital paperwork to show that he was telling the truth. Now, I had no idea where to start with the case number. I figured being in Canada, there's no way that they would just give me that information without a huge hassle. However, thanks to the legwork of one of our Patreon Discord members, a very helpful Snick, we managed to locate a website with the case number online. Thanks again for that, Snick. You're the best. I mean it. The case wasn't freely available, mind you. I paid $11 out of my own pocket to acquire it, and I did so happily to get to the bottom of all this. Daniel also got us a copy of his hospital records. Everything he said checks out. There were no exaggerations or lies on his part. He got in a serious accident that left him incapacitated and in the hospital for 17 days. It would be obviously unethical for me to share those records here publicly, but just know that we saw them and we verified them for ourselves. The other guy, by the way, never got back to us with anything. Radio silence ever since, if he even had anything to begin with. So, given that a good portion of his claims were invalidated with the paperwork that we saw, I'm perfectly content discarding his other claims as well, especially considering he never backed up his statements to begin with. Now, all of you have to understand why we acted the way that we did. We did quite a bit of verification beforehand, talking to Daniel about his situation, and his case number was always available to us on his GoFundMe and in his emails. There was no way that, if this other individual's claims turned out to be true, we wouldn't be able to find that out beforehand. We can't track down and contact every person who knows or ever knew the individual asking for help. It's obviously not feasible. So we had to check this out right away. Also, and perhaps most importantly, it's difficult enough getting people to support men's issues and to donate to men in need without the possibility that someone is lying to scam money from others. We acted as quickly as possible because we needed to get the facts and we needed to protect your interests, the viewers. We need you to know that your money is going to legitimate causes, to legitimate individuals in need. That's why we're getting this back up now that we've done all of this extra legwork to verify for ourselves. Daniel offered to reimburse me the $11 that I spent to buy a copy of the case report, by the way. That's not the way a dishonest individual would behave. So here's to you, Daniel. Sorry for all of the difficulty surrounding this. And to all of our viewers, sorry for the confusion. Let's see, now that all of this nastiness is behind us, if we can get Daniel some help.